And with a guy like Kyler Murray, there are so many reasons why he could potentially be the number one overall pick in this draft.
We'll hear from many people close to Kyler Murray throughout this show. But first, let's start with his offensive coordinator at Allen High School in Texas, Jeff Fleener.
All right, Coach, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. First question from me is just when was the first time you met Kyler Murray and what was your impression?
I was able to meet Kyler when he was actually in middle school. Kevin, his dad, was training one of the quarterbacks we had at Allen High School there in that 2010, 2011 years. And so he was in middle school and then his freshman year of high school, and got a chance to meet him a couple times at some of those training sessions, and got to know him a little bit. But for you guys in the media know pretty quickly that Kyler's not real trusting of everybody right when he first meets them. So it was definitely fun that he went ahead and came to Allen High School and got to build that relationship with him.
In terms of building that relationship, what was it like when you finally had an opportunity to work with him in practice and to see and observe how he interacted with his teammates in games?
Oh, it was an absolute blast. I mean, you first just see him the first 2-3 throws he has just at a practice. The very first time we got to see him practice, he was actually before we'd even started our fall practices, and he met with some of our receivers and our other quarterback just to throw some balls at one of the middle schools. And just from the very beginning, knowing that he's just barely 15 years old and watching, everything's perfect. I mean, the fundamentals, his hips, his feet, his arm placement, every single ball, whether he's playing catch from a guy 10 yards away from him or throwing a post route down the field, it's effortless. And, it's one of those things that made it really easy as a coach that, a lot of times you'd have to spend a lot of time working on fundamentals and drops and footwork and things like that. And there was so much of that with Kyler that was just natural, or just what he had been working on for so long with his dad.
You guys went on a historic run. You won 3 straight state titles, and Kyler Murray was the starting quarterback. What did you learn about Kyler Murray during that sustained run when you guys were able to kind of dominate the level of competition with him at the quarterback?
His leadership is such a different style, and probably something that's been called into question a lot, because following a guy like Baker Mayfield of Oklahoma, everybody, that's what they expected, which was, Baker was a guy that wasn't afraid to talk in front of the microphone and be loud and be the passion guy, the juice guy, the guy giving the pep talk before the games and dancing and getting all the excitement going, where, Kyler's always been my description, silent assassin. And the confidence that he brought to his team just simply on his preparation and play. But I think there's just so many people that don't get to see his leadership because of the out there in front of you on social media, in front of the cameras. His leadership was what he did every day at practice. We have, just stories upon stories from his 3 years as our quarterback at practices, as far as he demanded you to be at your very best and be great on a single snap and every single rep that we took in practice, or you were going to hear about it pretty quick. It was really easy to be a coach at that point, because if we had a receiver that didn't run hard enough on a post route, he was going to meet you halfway and be in your ear and in your face telling you that it was going to be hard for him to throw you one in the game if you weren't going to go all out in practice, because he needed to know where you were going to be, because he wanted to be perfect. He wanted the ball to be exactly where it was supposed to be. And so we used to joke that we had our routes on air period right before a 5-minute break before our special teams. And there was times our receivers, when it got to be break time, would start to head to go get a Gatorade something. And Kyler would yell at him, rip him, tell him, nope, you don't get a break today because we had 2 dropped balls, or, you didn't run hard enough. And, as a coach, when your best athlete and best player demands that type of attention to detail and that amount of preparation, a lot of the other stuff takes care of itself. The crazy thing about Kyler is, as you get to know him and hear the stories and get to know his family, is, he had a guy like his dad that from very early on could help him with the football stuff. And then you have his uncle, Calvin Murray, that was obviously a professional baseball player and pretty good at it, and, was able to be trained. But more than anything, Kyler was just wired in a way that he wanted to be great. Kevin will tell that story a lot, that, he wasn't one of these Todd Marinovich dad type of guys where it was demanding that his kid do this and practice this much. Kyler's just a kid that 3 and 4 years old was constantly grabbing dad, hey, let's go hit balls, let's go play catch, let's go do this, let's go do that. And I think that's what really sets him apart is you wish every single young athlete had that in them. But like I said, he's just wired differently than other people.
Well, Buck, I thought it was fascinating to listen to Coach Fleener talk about his time there with Kyler Murray, and you kind of get a sense of the seriousness and the competitive side of Kyler. And another person who's watched Kyler Murray closely for years, Buck, ESPN recruiting director and college football analyst Todd Luginbill. He had Murray ranked as a top overall quarterback and 13th best prospect in the class of 2015, and I had a chance to sit down and talk with Tom.
Kyler Murray, I don't know that there was a more decorated high school player in terms of the success he had there at Allen High School there in Texas, but when you're evaluating him as a high schooler, how do you look at what he's done? The zillion Division I players on his team, but still he stands out like a sore thumb. What was your evaluation on him before he went to A&M?
Well, the thing that was really interesting about that is, number one, he never lost a game in high school, and he played in a great program at Allen High School, and they had some really good players, but they didn't have players across the board that were Power 5 level guys. And so it really kind of really magnifies the job that he was able to do. I think the first thing you've got to do with Kyler Murray is you've got to just allow yourself to remove the measurables and really focus on the production. Focus on the little nuances of the position, some of the things that you can't coach, instincts, pocket awareness, leadership, a quiet swagger. He doesn't say an awful lot. And, I've said all along, and I actually said this when he was coming out, because he too was a guy that we had in the Under Armour game. And we had talked very, very deep with our staff that if this guy was 3 inches taller, he'd be the best quarterback prospect that we had evaluated. At that time, I think we've been at it 10 years. We're at it about 13, 14 now. But the reality is he was, 5'10" and some change. And the one thing that I've really been, focusing on with that, because everybody says, well, is he tall enough? Well, it's not, is he tall enough? It's, can he stay durable? Mm-hmm. Can he protect himself? Because the game has changed. It's a shotgun-based game. He'll find lanes. He can change arm angles. He can do all those things. He's got much better arm strength than people think he does. And I think it's really important in today's game. You've got to be able to throw off balance. You've got to be able to make throws when things aren't perfect. Those are some of the things that he does really, really well. So what you really become concerned about is the durability side. There's a difference between 5'10" and 6 foot. Doesn't seem like there is, but there is. However, with Kyler, and I don't know if you agree with this, there's also a difference between being short and small.
No question.
He's not small. He's short, but he's got some stature to him. And so all of the things, I look at what I call the AAA: aptitude, athleticism, accuracy. I think he checks those boxes.
DJ, that was fascinating stuff from Luginbill. I think the thing that stands out to me is just, man, what would guys have rated Kyler Murray if he had been just a little taller, if he had kind of those prototypical physical dimensions that you typically look for in QB1s. The fact that he was rated as highly as he was coming out of high school just continues to kind of cement the case that this dude was a special player, a dynamic athlete, a remarkable playmaker at the high school level.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the timing, right? If this is a player that had come out 10 years ago, without having a Russell Wilson doing what he's doing, without having Baker having that immediate success, maybe you get a little more penalized for his size, but it definitely is a different time, not only for us as we look at these guys coming to the NFL, but Tom, speaking to that fact as you're looking at high school recruits. Now, Lincoln Riley, somebody who has unique insight on what took place during this process and what went into the decision for Kyler Murray.
As a coach, how proud are you of just what Kyler Murray's done so far?
They're really proud, just from where he started, coming in here, having to sit a year and then being Baker's backup for a year. And then with all the outside pressure on this kid from, all he's had on him from his high school career, all the baseball, just so much has been made of it. And he's handled it all so well. And I'm so happy that he got the chance to make the decision. He certainly made that decision to go full forward with football. And somebody's going to love coaching him at the next level.
Coach, I want to go back to that time when Baker moves on. Baker goes to the Browns, and now you're going to give the keys to Kyler with this offense. What was said in that meeting, and did you see any change in Kyler from kind of sitting in the passenger seat to now taking over there in the driver's seat?
The great thing about Kyler was even when he wasn't the starter, he was pretty aggressive. I mean, that's just his nature, and he was always competing with Baker. I think it made those two guys better throughout their time together here, but he certainly took the reins pretty quickly here. He was very natural and comfortable in that leadership spot. Really, I think the team really took on his personality, especially his competitiveness. And he's one of those guys, he sets such a high standard for everybody around him. And he sets it for himself first and then expects them to all meet it. And so it made our team better, and he was just certainly a tremendous leader for us.
You go back to this point last year, and Kyler Murray was a baseball player who was going to give football a one-year shot. At what point during this season did you realize he was going to have a tough decision to make about the NFL?
Well, I thought even before the season that if he played the way we thought he could, that it potentially could be a decision. And I remember about the mid-season after we'd played a few games and I'd seen him live. It was the bye week. He came in and we talked a little bit about it. And I just said, hey, you keep playing like this, you realize you are going to have a decision to make, and so just keep doing what you're doing. And he obviously even went and played even better the second half of the season. But I'm proud of how he handled it. I mean, there's never been anybody in any sport that's had to deal with what he's had to deal with, and the different offers on the table and all the scrutiny. And he's handled it all so well, and just with a very mature manner.
Last thing for me, Joe, I'm going to get one more in here. Just selfishly, I know we're not going to see Tyler run, but in a race in practice, Hollywood and Kyler, how has that gone? Who wins?
If it's 100, I would say Hollywood. If it was a 40, you pay good money to watch it. I promise you that.
That's a good way to put it. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.
DJ, how about that? You're Lincoln Riley, and in 2 years as head coach of Oklahoma, you have 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks.
No doubt, Buck. And I had a chance to do a coaches roundtable where a chance to sit down and visit with 4 big-time college football head coaches, including Mike Gundy, somebody that knows firsthand what it's like to play against Kyler Murray. All right, welcome into our college coaches roundtable. Pleased to be joined by 4 big-time college coaches. Coach Adazio from Boston College, Coach Cristobal from Oregon, Coach Gundy from Oklahoma State, and the new head coach at the University of Houston, and Coach Holgorsen. Guys, I want to talk about a player if you've played against him or you've definitely seen him through this process. One of the more unique players that I've seen in my scouting career is Kyler Murray, and what he presents as an athlete and just a weapon at the quarterback position. I haven't really seen anything like it. Coach Gundy, I know you played the position there. First question, just the skill set of somebody like that and how fun it is to be a play caller when you have somebody.
Well, I certainly didn't play the position like he played it, that's for sure. And he was a one-and-done guy, and I have to say I'm glad he's one and done. But he's being an arch rival of us, obviously with Bedlam, but he has had the single greatest year, in my opinion, of a college quarterback to show up and play 1 year and then move on. And to watch him play live, the guy's fantastic. I mean, it is what it is. Watching him play and the things that he was able to do and the success that he's had, and he just had a fantastic year. And we did not want to compete against him, but I will say this, I have a lot of respect for him, the way he handled himself and the way that he competed. He was fantastic.
Quick follow-up on that. Haven't seen him, obviously, at your rival school. You've seen him. The guy before him was the first pick in the draft last year. How would you compare the two?
Well, they're very similar with their ability to have success, but Baker Mayfield was so good at moving around and finding a receiver downfield and just being deadly accurate and being in a position that you thought you had him multiple times and he could find a way to throw it downfield and make a play. Murray being the opposite somewhat in the fact that you thought you had him and you couldn't get your hands on him. And we played him, I tell the story, we played him, I think the 8th or 9th game this year, we played Oklahoma. And going into the game, he had only been tackled 7 times. Not sacked, tackled, really like tackled to the ground 7 times in 8 games or so. So that's the type of player he was. But we thought Baker was fantastic, and then Kyler comes along behind him and made a lot of good plays. So they've been fortunate down there with transfers.
Coach, you know this player very well, having been around that scene. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I recommended to the Browns people that they should probably take Baker Mayfield as the #1 pick because he was the best that I'd ever seen, and their offense was the best I've ever seen. When I was at West Virginia competing against these guys, I thought we could make a run at them last year. Didn't think that there was any way they could duplicate what they did in 2017. Well, they were better, and Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray was better. I've never seen anything like it. We played in Morgantown, ended up 59-56, and I don't think we tackled them all day. We didn't add to that stat, I know that, because he scored quite a bit. I just thought there's no way they could have duplicated, and they did. So I take the job at the University of Houston, and we open up with Oklahoma, and they got another one of these transfer quarterbacks that's
Jalen
coming
Hurts
in there.
is
So
coming
I can't escape these guys right now because Jalen Hurts. So I ain't saying anything about it this year.
All right, Buck, getting a chance to talk with those guys. I know you were there that day as well, got a chance to visit with them. It's always fascinating, not only talk to guys that have coached someone, but more importantly, those that have coached against them.
Yeah, because you get their perspective, and it's unique when you stand on the opposite sideline, and you've had to be in game plan meetings where you had to figure out how do we slow this guy down. Unique perspective for guys that have really been on the tough end of some losses handed at the hands of Kyler Murray.
Tell everybody what we've got coming up next here, Buck. A good friend of the show, also somebody has unique insight here on Kyler Murray.
Well, a friend of our show, and not only this show, but Path to the Draft, Joel Klatt, a former Big 12 starting quarterback at Colorado, and was on the call for 5 Oklahoma Sooner games last fall. He has something to say about Kyler Murray. How do you compare and contrast the two when you saw them at Oklahoma?
That's a great question. I immediately saw a difference in the threat of what Kyler was providing as a runner, and it wasn't. So the difference came in the style of defense they were facing. Everyone was concerned about Baker, but they were concerned about him as a distributor and his ability to read the RPO down the field. And so now all of a sudden the defenses had to make a choice. And that was the first thing I noticed, because everyone had defended Oklahoma so similarly when Baker was a quarterback. And now all of a sudden they had to account for this guy that if and when he wanted to pull it down, it wasn't just, oh man, he's going to move the chains. It's like, oh my God, get him on the ground, please, because he could take it the distance. And what I saw was a guy that was out there, and he was lethal in taking advantage of defenses that were built to stop him. And he was going down the field to Hollywood Brown, and he showcased what I was talking about earlier, which was his ability to throw the football. And I think people were a bit surprised early in the year at his effectiveness down the field.
I thought he was more aggressive than Baker. I mean, you talk about going down the field and just looking at their styles and how they played. I thought there's some times where I wish Kyler Murray would take a little check down. Like you got some little bites there. You don't have to eat the whole sandwich in one bite.
Yeah.
I thought Baker would maybe a little more prone to say, hey, that's what they're giving me, I'm going to take it. I just felt like Kyler was always reading deep to short and always trying to take shots.
It's a great point. I think a lot of that is born out of the urgency of sitting for 2 years.
Yeah.
And knowing I gotta go.
Yeah.
Only 12
time.
guaranteed bites at this sandwich.
Yeah.
I got to get going. Whereas the calmness of playing for 3 years for Baker, understanding that it's like, hey, and so I think that was more experience, because late in the year I thought Kyler did a better job of that, to be honest with you. Even against Alabama, when they really needed it, I didn't feel like he was rearing back looking for home runs all the time.
Having covered as many games as you did you sense as you were going through the year that, okay, he became a little more comfortable as the front man?
Okay, so I think that there's 2 parts to this answer, and there is the part where everything in life I think has to do with expectations, right? And so Baker Mayfield had just been the starting quarterback for that whole, program for 3 years.
Yeah.
And he was an acquired taste. Kyler is so different than that. He's just a quiet, confident leader. I think that their confidence is virtually the same in their self-belief of what they can do and what they can provide. And so I thought that when you would hear that and you're like, well, Kyler's not he's growing into the leader. I think that's more born from their expectations of what they just had from Baker, because when I talked to the teammates, they loved Kyler. They loved what he brought. A quiet confidence is very different than a boisterous confidence, but it's still confidence nonetheless. And you know what? His mentality fit baseball. And that's a lot of that is born from his experience.
So think about that, continuing on with the baseball theme, how do you think being a standout baseball player has impacted his ability to impact the game in football?
Skill set wise, I don't think that there's a lot of translation at all. I think it's all mentality.
What position did you play, by the way? For those who don't know, Joel was drafted by the Padres. So
Man,
I
he's
got
so
the Padres.
good
I got the
getting
Padres
like
plug.
almost
First,
every
he was
podcast.
drafted by the current first place Padres. Go ahead, floor is yours.
That's right. And their scouting department all got fired after that draft. No, I was a third baseman.
Yeah.
And so a position player. And I think that that's important because pitchers and position players are so different in what they have to bring to the table. And one of the things that I struggled a lot with is that I had a football mentality playing baseball. I wanted to succeed every single time, play with a sense of urgency. It was, this is the most important rep.
Harder's better.
Harder's better, effort. And that is a failed approach in baseball. You cannot do that. The guys that just allow it to come for them understand that regardless of what happens in this opportunity, there's going to be a next opportunity. Regardless of what happens in that opportunity, there's going to be a next opportunity. And those are the styles of mentality that I think are really successful in baseball. And one of the reasons why he had a lot of success in baseball. That's why I think you see the calm nature with the way that he kind of operates on the football field. And but that's the attribute that I think translated the most.
Oh, I love our buddy Joel, and some great insight there, Buck. Baseball, football, the difference between the two. Although I got to needle Joel just a little bit because he wasn't a first-round pick. I mean, what's the big deal, man? You see, Kyler Murray is going to be a top 10 pick in both sports. Joel just got, he's just found his way into both sports professionally. I mean, come on, Joel, let's step up your game a little bit here. Buck, you had a chance to catch up with my 30th ranked prospect in this year's draft, Oklahoma All-American offensive tackle Cody Ford. You got a chance to visit with him there at the Combine and ask him about the Oklahoma quarterbacks.
What is it like to play with the Heisman Trophy winner?
It's exciting, not playing with just one, but back-to-back Heisman winners. I don't think many people get to say that. I'm very honored to play with both of those guys, but playing with Kyler is different. He's a great athlete, a great leader, and a great teammate to have on your team.
And thinking about that, because it is a unique contrast to be able to have Kyler Murray and then Baker Mayfield, who was first overall, having to protect for both of those guys. What are some of the similarities and differences between the way they play?
Some of the similarities would be they both like to take control of the situations when it's need be. Another similarity is if we mess up as a line, they find a way to make us look good, getting out of the pocket. One difference I would say was Kyler's not a trash talker as much as Baker, but that's the only difference I can come up with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what Cody Ford was able to say about both of those guys. Cody Ford obviously knows those guys well, having blocked for them. I thought his take on their leadership styles and just the differences between Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray were unique. But I think it's one of the challenges that teams will have going forward in the National Football League when you look at the way that these two guys play the game in their respective manners.
Well, we got a chance to talk to somebody who lined up in front of Kyler Murray. Let's talk to somebody who lined up out wide, Marquise Brown. He had a chance to not only play with Kyler Murray, but obviously spend some time there with Baker Mayfield as well. If I was just going to ask you the difference playing for Baker Mayfield and with Baker Mayfield and then playing with Kyler Murray, I know you've been asked this before, but what's the difference between the two?
I say the difference is just their personalities. On the field, they both love to win. So the difference is, Kyler is more, just him. He's reserved. He's out there business-like. And Baker is loud. He's going to get everybody going. And it's just, they're just different personalities.
And having to play with those guys back-to-back, and you talked about Kyler Murray being a little more business-like, where Baker was a little more flamboyant and boisterous. How long did it take you guys to adjust to Kyler Murray's leadership style?
I mean, we knew Kyler, so we knew they were two different guys. Of course, at first, it was like, we had to raise the energy levels in different ways because Baker wasn't there. But that's something we quickly adjusted to because how close we are at OU.
How much fun was it, though, knowing that with either one of these guys at quarterback, as fast as you are, man, it's tough to overrun them. I mean, they get the ball up and they get it out, and you guys attack vertically with both those quarterbacks with you getting over the top.
Yeah, man, it's just a blessing, and that's during the recruiting process, Kyler was my host. So it was like I knew I was going to have, some good quarterbacks, and that was the reason I came out here.
In having that relationship, because Kyler was your host, did the offense change much? I knew you guys were tight, but you had a close relationship with Baker Mayfield as well. How much did the offense change when Kyler took over for Baker Mayfield?
It changed a lot, because Kyler can do a lot with his legs. So, you know, it came more dynamic. Teams got to account for more people. So it just changed a lot, and, you know, he opened up a lot of things for other people.
Well, Hollywood, when I was at the pro day there, got a chance to chat with you a little bit, and then I chatted with Kyler on the air and got a chance to ask him, you guys have been asked it before, put your hand on the ground, you're healthy, your foot's totally healthy, we go ahead and let you guys run for it, who wins? So I'm not going to tell you what Kyler said, but I want to get your honest opinion. Who hits that tape first if you and Kyler were to square off in a race?
I say me. You know, thing with me, I grew up racing all the time, so it's nothing to get out there and race. If I lose, I lose. You know, he been prolonging it for too long, so we can race whenever. You know.
How close would the race be? If you win, how close is a few feet? Is Kyler right on your heels? How close is that race between you and Kyler Murray when y'all hit the tape?
And a 40 is going to be real close.
Okay,
yeah, it's going to be close.
All right.
Yeah, Kyler got a good takeoff, and yeah, it's going to be close for sure. But anything past the 40, I'm leaving.
All right, Buck, I had to ask him the question. I mean, that's an age-old question, right? Who's faster, you or your buddy? I had no choice. I had to ask that one.
I mean, you had to ask him. I would love to see that race play out because there's a perception that Kyler Murray may be quicker than fast, and we know that Hollywood just has the gas. And so to see them in a 40-yard dash, I might pay a little buck. I might throw some money down to go be in attendance for that one. We caught up with Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, Texas DN Charles Omenihu at the Senior Bowl and asked him about both Kyler Murray and the #1 pick in the 2018 draft, Baker Mayfield.
All right, Charles, I want you to put your scouting hat on here, join two scouts here, and let's do some scouting. I want to talk about maybe the most electric player in college football, Kyler Murray. You got a chance to see him twice, so I want a little evaluation on him and maybe a comparison between what you saw in Kyler Murray and the guy he replaced in Baker Mayfield.
So yeah, Kyler, I mean, best player I've ever played against in my life, hands down. Dynamic with running the ball, and then also people might not give him as much credit, but he can throw that thing just as good as he can run, man. So yeah, but comparing him to Baker didn't run the ball like he did. Baker is elusive now. So you go back and watch our game. I mean, Baker ducked some sacks. Me one, unfortunately, where I could have had 2 sacks versus Baylor, just got 1. But he's elusive too, but not to the level of Kyler. Throwing, I think they're right there with each other. They're both very accurate. They both trust their arms like crazy. But I think Kyler's better just because he can run that thing.
Can you feel his speed? Like a lot of times you ask defensive players, and they know how fast is somebody. Somebody just say, can you feel it? Do you feel his speed when you're on the field with Kyler Murray?
Yeah, so the first time we played him, it was an option play, and I had my job was to slow play him so he would pitch it and give time for everybody, rally to the pitch man. And so we're running the option, he's going, the sideline's kind of pretty close, but not too close. And I'm playing him, and he seemed like he's gonna keep it. But he was playing it so slow, so he was like, lull you to sleep, and then boom. Dude, like lightning went by me, bro. And I look back to my DB, and I'm like, yo, did you just see this, man? Like, he was literally right there, and then hit the sideline so fast, bro. And then he's so good at like tiptoeing, getting a little extra yards and extending the ball, because you know how he carries the ball. Yeah. And I was like, dude, we're going against somebody that's real deal, like Mike Vick-ish.
That's nice. I mean, that's an awesome quote. I want to know even more about it because you faced him twice. How much did he change in the second game from the first game?
Didn't run as much the second game. It was a lot more of they were trying to pound the rock, and we did a decent job versus the run, but they were trying to throw that ball and move the pocket a little bit. They're a lot more balanced than they were the first game.
Well, Buck, it's great to hear from Charles Omenihu. Look, somebody had a little bit of success, at least splitting his games with Kyler Murray, and had a tough loss there against Baker Mayfield. But I thought the quote there that was so interesting is he said, Kyler Murray, the best football player he's ever played against.
Let's hear from the man himself. Here's a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, Kyler Murray.
What are you working on now as we go from this point in time to get to the draft as you prepare for this big moment?
Yeah, just continue to polish stuff up. Obviously, when you get into an offense, coaches want you to do certain things this way or that way. So obviously, I'm not going to be able to know exactly what I'm doing as far as that goes. But just keep working on drop, shotgun, play action, all that stuff.
You've been a 2-sport star for your entire life and your entire career here. Now you have an entire spring to focus on football. What's that been like for you to not have baseball be in the back of your mind?
I've done it my whole life. So, when people ask me, is it like do you have to flip a switch or anything like that? No. I mean, for me, I touch one field, I do my thing, I touch the other field, and it's time to go on that field. So I guess, yes, now that I'm spending all my time playing football, people, I hope to, make a tremendous stride, obviously, but, it's one day at a time for me. It's always been that way, so that's how we're going to keep doing it.
And asking everybody around the program about you for today and even leading up to the Combine, hear a lot of the same things. Talk about your toughness, talk about your intelligence. I hear great things about your work ethic. Everybody says, you're quiet, you're a little bit quieter. Is there an example? Can you give me an example just where you've kind of taken over in that vocal leadership role? We know you're a leader by example, but has there been an instance here at OU where you've gotten in front of the team and shared some things?
I mean, I can't go through every,
But
every
it's
vocal.
happened.
Yeah. Everybody in the locker room knows. I can't give you that side on the TV show or anything like that, but all my boys know, it's it's intense. It is what it's time to go. We're not playing around. That's just who I am off the field. It is, I don't have much to say about it.
I don't know if you were here last year when Baker Mayfield was going through his pro day.
Yeah.
But clearly he was the first pick in the draft. He's had a really good rookie season. Have you reached out to him about how to handle this process, and what kind of advice has he given you about going through this part of the process?
Yeah. Since during the season we kind of, didn't really talk much because he was busy, I was busy. But, since the Heisman, he talked me through that deal and then so forth. We've been in contact pretty much a lot, So talked to him last night about the Odell trade. I texted him.
What did he say?
I can't go into that, but let's say I was a little jealous. But no, he's a great guy. That's my boy. So it's great having him in my corner.
You don't have to say it. I know you're not going to say it. But is there a team you have in mind where you're looking at it saying that's where I want to go, or are you open to wherever?
I'm not one of those guys that's like I want to go here, I want to go there. I'm grateful to be in this position wherever I go. This has always been a dream of mine to play in the NFL. So obviously I would love to go number one in the draft. But if not, it is what it is.
Well, I asked your coach this, and I want you to be really honest about this, because this time last year, you were a guy who was a top 10 pick in the Major League Baseball draft, and people were talking about you playing football as if you just wanted to do it because you never had the chance to do it. When did you realize this dream of playing in the NFL was a lot more realizable than it was a year ago?
Since I was a kid, I always wrote down on my paper, play in the NFL, be in the NFL. But obviously, the past 2 years, I was sitting behind Baker. And all I was doing was playing baseball. The scouts obviously got to see me play baseball. I didn't get to see me play football. So I'm 5'10", we know how everybody thinks, about that. So not many of us in the league. So with not having film and being short, you don't know how the NFL feels about you. You haven't played in 2 years, and that's just where it was. So I feel like it's pretty understandable from the outsider if you're looking in. Why I was in the situation I was in.
All right, last question, then we'll let you run here. I asked your head coach this question because I'm curious. The two fastest players I saw on tape this year were you and your teammate in Hollywood. So you guys aren't going to run. He's got the foot. When he's healthy, when you're healthy, maybe it's like Rocky, right?
Together.
Remember, like Rocky and Apollo. Nobody's in the gym, but you guys race that 40. Who wins?
I got him. I'm gonna get him
today, definitely, right?
Today, got a boot on.
Definitely. But I'm on record saying that 40 yards, I'll get him.
All right, there you go.
Past 40 yards, he got it. I don't really care about that.
All right, Buck, it was fun to talk with Kyler. It felt like got him to open up a little bit, got to see a little bit of his personality come out in that interview there with Jeff Chadiha, visiting with him at the Oklahoma Pro Day. I feel like we've done a nice job of painting the picture of Kyler as a winner. How do you see him fitting in as a potential number one overall pick? Is that the right spot for him, and how's he going to do?
I think he's going to be a fantastic player at the next level. He's unique because he's a little different. He doesn't fit the normal prototypes when it comes to his physical dimensions or even his style of play. However, he can play in a traditional offense because he is a polished pocket passer. He has unique traits when it comes to his arm talent, and then he gives you the extra, which is his running ability. I would expect Kyler Murray to do what he has always done. In high school, he was a dominant player and a winner. In college, he was a dominant player and a winner. I don't think it changes when he gets to the pros. Sure, you have to make some changes a little bit, some tweaks to your offense to make sure that you fully take advantage of all the things that he brings to the table. But I expect if he goes to the right situation, he's going to win. With the Arizona Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury and he, being able to kind of work together, I think that's a unique challenge just because the Cardinals may not have a lot around him. But Cliff Kingsbury is a terrific quarterback developer. He has a track record of having success with quarterbacks. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But Kyler Murray certainly is worthy of consideration at number 1 because I think he's a top 10 player. It's just a matter of scheme fit with the player. I think he should have success regardless.
Well, I look at it and I say this is a marvelous athlete with a huge arm who's got a lot of twitch, and that to me is an underrated aspect of the position. It's one of the reasons why last year you look at guys like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, things you liked about them. Everything was sudden. You don't have to be the best athlete in the world, but everything's just sudden and quick. See things quickly, quick release, quick feet. There's just a suddenness about him, and I see that with Kyler Murray, and those are things I really, really like. He can make things happen quickly. Now, 2 challenges he's going to face at the next level. Number 1 is something that's been talked about a lot. It's just durability. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's a little over 200 pounds. He's going to take some shots. Can he continue to get back up off the field after taking those hits? He's done a really good job of protecting himself, sliding, get out of bounds, giving up. You'll even see him roll his shoulder, turn away from contact inside the pocket. But still, durability would probably be at the top of the list of my concerns. And then the unknown for me is playing in chaos. When you look at him, you go back to high school. He played with a tremendously talented high school team. They went 43-0, as we've talked about here. He had better players on his side of the field every time he got on the field. At Oklahoma, almost the exact same. You could argue until they got into the playoffs, every game they took the field, he had better players. With that Arizona Cardinals group, Buck, he's going to find himself in some of that chaos. How does he play? How does he function in that environment? To me, that's a little bit of an unknown.
It is an unknown, and I think you bring up valid concerns because he has always been the favorite, the heavyweight. He's never necessarily been the underdog when it comes to who he has with him. And so how does he handle that? How does he handle losing games? Because he's never really been exposed to a lot of losses. And so either you're a guy who, because you hate losing so much that you find a way to will yourself and your team to victories, or it can kind of paralyze you a little bit because you've never really had to deal with that kind of adversity. There are some questions that he will have to answer along his journey, but I'm certainly willing to bank on his ability to answer the bell and come out of it on the other side.
Yeah, I end up with him as the top quarterback in this year's draft class. It does look like it will be the Arizona Cardinals. If not the Arizona Cardinals, I think you start to look at the Raiders at pick number 4, or potentially a team like the Washington Redskins or Miami Dolphins climbing up to get ahead of the Raiders to pick him. I can't see any scenario where he falls out of the top 5. Can you, Buck?
No, I can. I think he's just a special player, a unique talent. He's one that we've kind of been championing for a while, and I think the play matches up with where he's going to be selected because I think he has an opportunity to be a superstar in this league.
Click here to subscribe to the NFL YouTube channel and click here to subscribe to the Move the Sticks podcast.